I'll just mention. All the way from Oklahoma, Vishnu's dad is here.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello, Pradeep.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Ajnanatirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamatyam Dadhati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganita Shri Vishakamitamscha Hare Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesh Gopikakanta Radhakanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshaya Bhutale Srimade Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, right now we're reading from the 11th canto, story of the Avanti Brahmana. It's Natata Tapyate Vidha
Natata tapyate vidha.
Uman Banaistu Marmagai
Uman banaistu marmagai.
Yata Tuganti Marmasta
Yata turanti marmasta.
Jasatam Parusheshava.
Yasatam parusheshava.
Could you tell us the number of the verse?
11th canto, 23rd chapter, verse 3.
11:23, 3.
Na
No.
Tata Tapyate
Tapyate
Vidha
vidha.
Kuman
Uman
Bane
bane
Tu
tu
Marmage
marmagai.
Yatha
Yatha
Tudanti
turanti
Marmasta
marmasta.
He
He
Indeed Asatam
asatam
Parusha
parusha.
Ishava
Ishava
Natata Tapyate Vidha
natata tapyate vidha.
Kuman Banaistu Marmage
Uman banaistu marmagai.
Yatha Tudanti Marmasta
Yatha turanti marmasta.
Yasatam Parusheshava
Yasatam parusheshava.
Natata Tapyate Vidha
Natata tapyate vidha.
Kuman Banaistu Marmage
Uman banaistu marmagai.
Yatha Tudanti Marmasta
Yatha turanti marmasta.
Yasatam Parusheshava
Yasatam parusheshava.
Natata Tapyate Vidha
Natata tapyate vidha.
Kuman Banaistu Marmage
Uman banaistu marmagai.
Yatha Tudanti Marmasta
Yatha turanti marmasta.
Yasatam Parusheshava.
Yasatam parusheshava.
Anyone else like chant?
Natata tapyate vidha.
Natata Tapyate Vidha
Puman Banai Stumarmagai.
Puman Banai Stumarmagai.
Yata Tudanti Marmasta.
Yata Tudanti Marmasta.
Yasatam Parasheshava.
Yasatam Parasheshava.
Natata tapite vidha.
Natata tapyate vidha.
Puman banastu marmagai.
Puman Banai Stumarmagai.
Yata tulanti marmasta.
Yata Tudanti Marmasta.
Yasitam asitam parusheshava.
Yasatam Parusheshava.
Natata tapyate vidha.
Natata tapyate vidha.
Puman banaistu marmagai.
Puman Banaistu Marmagai.
Yatha tudanti marmasta.
Yatha Tudanti Marmasta.
Yasatam purusham sabha.
Yasatam Parusheshava. Anyone online like to chant?
Yes, I will. Just need to bring it back. Natata tapyate vidam.
Natata tapyate vidha.
Umambanestu marmagai.
Puman Banaistu Marmagai.
Yata tudanti marmasta.
Yatha Tudanti Marmasta.
Yasatam parusheshavaham.
Yasatam Parusheshava. Anyone else? Na,
Na.
not,
Nat.
tata.
Tata.
In the same way,
In the same way,
tapyate
Tapyate
is caused pain,
Is
cause pain.
vidha,
Vidha,
pierced,
pierce.
puman,
Puman,
a person,
a person.
bane,
Vana,
by arrows, two,
however,
however, marmage,
Marmagai,
going to the heart,
going to the heart.
yatha,
Yata,
as,
and
tudanti,
Tudanti,
prick,
prick.
marmasta,
Marmasta,
attaching within the heart,
attaching within the heart.
he,
He,
indeed,
is
asatam,
Asatam,
of evil persons,
of evil persons.
parusha,
Marusha,
harsh words,
harsh words.
ishava,
Yeshava,
the arrows.
the arrows.
Translation: sharp arrows which pierce one's heart, sharp arrows which pierce one's chest and reach the heart, do not cause as much suffering as the arrows of harsh, insulting words that become lodged within the heart when spoken by uncivilized men. They were joined by Bhaktin Fayanan, Dhir Govinda Prabhu, Parampara Prabhu, Srimati Malini Devi Dasi, my parents, George Mera, and David, Bhakti David.
And Bhakti David is Atmarama, who's been serving Prabhupada's movement for about 50 years.
Okay.
Just so, just had it translated there. He's coming in from New Zealand.
Admirala Prabhu. Okay. So obviously also in Bhagavad Gita it said Yadate moha kalilam buddhir vyati tarishyati tada gantasi nirvedam shrotavyasya shrutasya cha. When your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. So obviously this verse is more in tune with the experience of most people in the material world. This is very elevated.
Where we are not yet indifferent to all that has been heard.
Yeah.
All that will be heard.
I remember recently, actually, I shared a verse, Sanskrit. It was in the Mohamudga Stotra Shankaracharya. Sanskrit. It was Nari Stanabhara Navidesham Vishtva Maga Moha Vesham Etanmam Savasa Divikaram manasi vichintaya varam varam. Don't be bewildered by the transformations of by heavy breasts and thin waist. These are all transformations of fat, flesh, mucus. Don't be bewildered by this. And I shared this verse on Facebook, and some women, they did not take very kindly to this. So
I'm somehow not surprised to hear that.
it was, yeah.
And they shot insulting words towards you.
Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
Awesome. Very a great man, Cory Wayne, once said, people will not people will say and do only people only say and do what it's a reflection of what they feel, and people only say and do what a reflection of what they feel to you. So when somebody says, "Oh, Sakatov is Mayavad," it could be just could be a reflection of their cold nature, of their like refraining from trying to feel their emotions.
Atmavan Manyatejiga.
I don't know. Said, but then it's also said that Vaishnava, must be quote. It's said like sadhava bhushana, the symptoms of a sadhu that is tolerant. It's also said Chaitanya Mahaprabhu itai, Trinala Pisunichena, Torora Piseshna, Amani Amani Dena, Kirtanya Sadhava, only one who's tolerant as a blade of grass, and more humble than a
Tree.
tree. Only he can chant the name of Lord Hari constantly. This is obviously very elevated.
You know any other shlokas from Shankaracharya?
Shankaracharya, no. Also, it said, Cory Wayne. People only say and do what you invite them to do. And so it's also like everything can be a learning experience, and look at something negatively, others, see it as ultimately bring you closer towards Krishna.
Yes, that would seem to depend on our response.
Yes.
Our consciousness. So this verse is about, okay, so you read two verses, which can be seen as apparently contradictory. The verse from the 11th canto of Bhagavatam, because the Avanti Brahman, it's been a while since I read it, but he was quite a materialistic fellow. And then he had transformation, he had profound transformation. But he was he was a mean person, not just like light material, like greed, lust, envy, nastiness. Right, so it's the thing with like these shlokas, the Shastra. There's like sometimes apparent contradiction, but it's like because it's really empathy. That they're talking to different people or groups of people at different times. Now the principle is always the same. Meet people where they're at and support them to come towards self-realization and super soul connection. So this verse from Bhagavatam you read, it's about like, no, well, okay, so there's different like levels. So I think it's a very interesting juxtaposition of verses. Because, so one thing is just like, someone's insulted me, and that pierces my heart, and I'm going to get you back. You hurt me, as the psychological saying goes, hurt people, so I'm going to hurt you back. So, I'm familiar with that mentality. I could not say I'm immune to it. Okay, then there might be the platform where it's just like such like words that are like arrows. That, okay, someone like Rishabhadev, or like the really pure, that they're not even feeling, they're not identifying with the bodily designations, and they're just saying, okay, this person's in pain, so he's trying to hurt me. It's just all compassion, like that. There's no false ego reactivity. Then a verse like this 11th canto, yeah, piercing the heart. Because we can imagine, like, okay, like, because like there's like, even if someone with a kshatriya psychophysical nature, like kind of like it's their role to like get offended and pick up a bow and arrow and like, now I'm going to attack back. And it's not necessarily like anti-dharmic or something. And it would be different for a Brahmin. So we need to know like who we are. It's our role. And then the verse you read from Bhagavad Gita, as you said, Vishnu, Krishna's he's encouraging Arjuna to quite an elevated consciousness. Sometimes he's encouraging Arjuna towards like be kshatriya consciousness. And then sometimes he's encouraging like really be, but kshatriya is dharmic. But then sometimes he's encouraging Arjuna be transcendental to that. So it's like really, to just be indifferent. Like, I'm doing my service, I'm living my purpose. And some people might love me and be so inspired and clap. And some people might hate me and get angry and feel threatened. And there's a saying, what other people think and say about me is none of my business. I'll pause there.
Yeah. Actually, when Shishupala kept on insulting Krishna, he had the boon where he could insult Krishna 100 times. But after that, Krishna would not give him another chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His tolerance was complete.
Yeah. And after each insult, Krishna found like another way to like see it as like a compliment, just a glorification of him, of his personality. This is also seen with Hiranyaksha and Varahadeva.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like actually, Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur or Baladev Vidyabhushan, they both commented. It was these are all like actually these are going to all be seen as glorifications.
Yeah.
So Krishna, he takes the milk from the water.
Different levels of meaning.
Paramahamsa.
In the apparent insults of the demons.
It said also it was one time Ramanujacharya, he was in he had his guru.
Yeah,
Tirukoti or Nambi, I think. It was the Mayavadi. He was in a Mayavadi Gurukula. And the guru, he was teaching this verse where Krishna actually his face is compared to the rear end of a monkey. That's how he was teaching it, and that's how he interpreted the Sanskrit grammar. But actually, it was Ramanujacharya. He was the only person in the class. He objected to that and said, "Oh no, it's actually saying how it's a lotus. His face is compared to Krishna's face is compared to a lotus flower.
Ramanujacharya is a pure devotee of Ramachandra and Krishna. Yeah, so this juxtaposition of verses reminds me of a verse from the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, spoken by Lord Brahma. It's a verse we reference a lot in the Sattva environment. Ujjana eva kritam vibhakam. Vidvava porgir vidanamasta jigatu mukti pade sadnaya. So that's describing the mentality you're referring to, Vishnu. We define this as like, what is enlightenment? So this is enlightenment. To spontaneously respond to every life circumstance, particularly those that might be like piercing arrows, to spontaneously respond with deepened enthusiasm for self-realization and devotion to the Supreme. And that's what Krishna's talking about. Was it 256, the verse you read about indifference? 256. Right. So it means Yami Naryati Entite Pusham Pusharshaba. Samaduka Sukam Jiva. Somitat Baya Baya. Somitat Baya Baya. One whose steadiness in insult and great honor and dishonor, wealth and poverty, pebbles of gold. So one who's steady, means steady in pursuing self-realization and pursuing the soul, connecting with itself, the soul connecting with super soul and spirit of devotion. That's enlightenment. And that's I think where you were going in your statement, that you referenced Guru Wayne, that's the thing, so that we train ourselves to respond to everything in such a way that it's auspicious. Hare Krishna, Subal, and Parampara, Hari Hari Fo, Jai. That respond to everything, insults and compliments, and also with compliments or things that go nicely, we don't get distracted. Yay, and we don't get elated. We continue with sober, joyful inspiration for self-realization, whether it's arrows or flowers coming at us. Hare Krishna.
There's also, I think, in the 10th canto, there's also a verse where Rukmini says, how can anybody that accepts a husband that's whiskers
That verse.
and still it's a fool, other than you, Krishna.
Yeah, that verse. Some could see it, that she's trashing men.
Mhm.
I don't see it that way.
Mhm.
I see it, she's glorifying Krishna. Krishna says, Janma karma tame divyam evam yudati tatpata tatvideham punar janmaniti mamati suja. Krishna says, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance, my form, my activities, my name, such a person is liberated from material bondage. So, yeah, Rukmini is talking about all these other possibilities for a husband, mustaches and bloods and bones and stuff like that. So what she's really doing there is it's really a very deeply philosophical verse. She's appreciating Krishna's form, Krishna's body is completely transcendental. It doesn't deteriorate. It doesn't deteriorate. The body is non-different from the person. where that's not the case with us, right? And yes, and so the body's made, it's constituted of such Chidananda eternity, bliss and knowledge. And that's true for us too, to the extent that we reveal and uncover our spiritual body. So she's appreciating, it's a very philosophical verse actually, and there's definitely some humor there. But she's, Rukmini is appreciating the transcendental nature of the form of the Supreme Personality of God. That's why it's like, Prabhupada emphasizes a lot here, transcendental vibration, also forms, the forms of pure devotees, the forms of Radha Krishna. They're not material forms. So these forms purify our consciousness and existence. There's just like their spiritual sound, their spiritual form. So it's an intriguing verse from me. Of course, she ends up fainting in that pastime. So a lot of drama in that whole pastime. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any questions so far?
No, sir.
That was Pradeep?
Yeah.
Okay.
May I hear the verse again in English?
Oh. Sharp arrows which pierce one's chest and reach the heart do not cause as much suffering as the arrows of harsh, insulting words that become lodged within the heart and spoken by uncivilized men.
Thank you, Vishnu.
Did Malini comment?
She said, thank you, Vishnu.
Thank you, Vishnu.
I have more, but I was thinking Fayanen was speaking, so I stopped speaking because I thought that Fayanen was speaking.
You can go.
Okay, so thank you for your class and I appreciate all the verses that you like brought together. It was really interesting to see, like the flow of your class and the flow of those verses and the different angle that you presented in looking at tolerance, really. And I never thought about that verse that you quoted from the Bhagavad Gita. It's a verse that I think about a lot. It's just somehow, I don't know, but for the last few months, maybe a year, I don't know, that verse comes to my mind all the time. And for me, somehow I never understood it as a verse of tolerance. Like you presented it as a verse of tolerance, and I can really see how, like, it is a verse of tolerance. And so until now, I was interpreting it, or I was receiving it as, like being detached from all the blah blah, like all the moving the mouse for the reason, like Prabhupada says sometimes, moving the mouse like a crow, and the crow is attracting death by croaking, because then the snake knows where the crow is and like come. So I always interpreted that verse as like cultivating silence, or really be indifferent to whatever people speak about so many topics of discussion, like from the Bhagavatam, so many topics of discussion. So I thank you for bringing that aspect of tolerance into that verse. I appreciate that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I'm hearing you appreciated the structure and the new realization of tolerance connected to that verse, as well as the example Prabhupada gives of like the crow.
Yeah, via some Kirtan. Simply following up on your crow reference.
So I have a question, like, this is all right, like you preached all this not to be offensive to some people, but how to put it into practice? Do you do that, Vishnu? Do you practice that, or you just preaching it?
I try.
He's asking a pointed question.
Try, nobody's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. No one is perfect. But always attempting to do something, practice makes man's perfect, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the only question I had. Thank you for your clarification.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Pradeep.
Yeah, thank you.
The sort of practice that I think you're asking about, referring to, I would say it's what we dedicate ourselves to try to do. You probably heard about these seminars. You're paying for your son's seminars. So you should know something about them. Yeah. So really, it's exactly what we're trying to do. Imperfectly, but that's really it. We're trying because we focus a lot on communication, and there's the listening side, and then there's the speaking side. And so much what we do in these programs is that to cultivate the capacity to speak truly, to speak truth in a way that's truly beneficial. Because sometimes out of fear or different motivations, we'll avoid the truth. We're too scared to speak. So to connect with courage, to communicate truth. But then, then there's some, we might be like, well, here's the truth. I'm giving you the truth in your face. Truth. I'm such an honest person. But in the name of sharing truth, I'm really probably causing more sound pollution because I'm arrogant, obnoxious, and I'm just doing damage. So like to speak to the truth in a way where our heart's intention is genuinely to create, is truly win-win. That like I'm speaking, I'm not going to withhold truth out of fear. I'm going to communicate truth in a way that's truly intended for your good, out of a caring heart. And that's not easy. I don't find it easy. I am enthused, to cultivate the capacity, because it can be, it is sometimes said, if we're only ready to do what's easy, life will be hard. If we're ready to do what's hard, life will be easy.
Yeah.
So that speaking truth in a way that's truly meant to be beneficial for everyone, I find that hard. At the same time, I find it to be a worthwhile struggle to practice it, because it can be easy to just, I don't want to say anything, and then I feel all jammed up inside. Or it can be easy to just blurt out, yeah, here's what I think. But to really communicate my truth, my perception, in a way where I'm really carefully looking at my consciousness, the quality of my heart, am I truly doing it, communicating in a way that's beneficial? That's real sattvic communication. For me, that requires practice, and that sort of practice is a lot of what we focus on in these sattva programs. Hare Krishna.
It's very good insight, though. I would like to know more about it once Vishnu finish it, the course.
Thank you, Pradeep. I appreciate.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Pradeep. I appreciate your appreciation and support for our endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Vishnu. Nice. And thank you, dear Govinda. This last question that you brought up, Pradeep, or point that you brought up, and your response to it, dear Govinda, that was very inspiring for me, especially dear Govinda, and reminding me that if I'm willing to do what's hard, life will be easy. But if I'm only willing to do what's easy, life will be hard. And I'm going through it now, looking at preparing to facilitate the foundational course here in New Zealand. But I mean, maybe this is a rhetorical question, but I'm wondering, all right, so you're in responding or discussing with Pradeep, you said to speak in a way that's beneficial, that's growthful for others. So I may think that what I'm saying is going to be growthful. It's almost like you should listen to me, and it's almost like that aggressive way or arrogant way. So how will I know that I'm speaking something that's beneficial? I mean, obviously, some people may not appreciate what is done in a mood of care and support. Same time, how will I know that what I'm speaking is beneficial?
Good question, man.
Thank you, Atmananda. You said it might be rhetorical. Right. Well, if you want to respond, so if someone asked you that question, how would you respond?
If someone asked me,
Yeah.
yes, well, a conversation, a growthful, meaningful conversation is a dialogue. So I would want to know, and I'm practicing this to learn this myself, what the other person, how they feel about what I've said, and not necessarily what I've said, but how I've said it. Because you were indicating if someone speaks in an arrogant way, you didn't say these words, but what they may be saying is right or valid or true. But is it done in a mood? I'm talking about the mood. So I would want to know, it would be important for me to know what the person I'm speaking to feels. Not just about what I've said, but
Yeah.
how I said it.
You're pointing to the empathy principle.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that. I appreciate that paradigm, the empathy principle. And then of course we can kind of deconstruct it for someone's benefit. So then who is this someone? Who is the person? It's important to know, otherwise the conversation becomes loose and sentimental. Like, okay, whatever, someone on the street, like, oh, okay, can I have money for, okay, so here's money. I helped the person. I gave the person money, and maybe I did help them, but maybe they use the money to buy crack cocaine and sell it at the high school, and to get cigarettes, things that we know, like on every level, this isn't going to help, right? But okay, so what is the person? And that gets to the distinction between the body and the self. Dihinosmi yatandehe komaram yoganam jara tatate hantara praptir divasthatranamuyate. As the embodied soul continually passes from childhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at the time of death. So Bhagavad Gita there, it's just asking us to look at our direct experience, right? We've experienced ourselves in a 2-year-old body, a 12-year-old body, a teenage body, middle-aged body, now this body is 60 years old. So the body is completely changed. There's not one molecule that was the same when I was in the 5-year-old body. Yet there's a constant identity that I refer to as David Wolf. That indicates that, okay, that my identity is something completely non-material, something completely non-physical. That irreducible quanta of consciousness that inhabits the body. So in a sense, you've been using this metaphor a lot. If we're just doing service to someone's body or even someone's mind, right? Like the mind could be compared to like the software, and the body could be compared to like the hardware. So we're not the software, we're not the hardware, we're the operator of the computer. So if we're just doing service for the body and mind, it's kind of like rearranging the chairs on the Titanic. Eventually the ship's going down, maybe in 10 minutes or 50 years. But that atomic unit of sentience that animates the body. So to beneficial. So beneficial, the book, the seminal book, Personal Transformation, The Road Less Traveled, M. Scott Peck, he defines love, true friendship as supporting someone in their self-realization. And that's consistent with Bhagavad Gita. And Bhagavad Gita describes that even if in the name of friendship, that if we spend time with people, and whether it's through humor or serious talk or recreation, but if we spend time with people and we're not supporting each other in distinguishing reality from illusion, in helping the self, to inspiring the self to turn towards itself and self-discovery, the self to turn towards the supreme in an attitude of devotion. If we're not doing that with our time with other people, whether it's family members, friends, colleagues at the office, then we're actually doing violence. We're actually doing violence because the human form of life is very precious. Avyarta kalatvam, someone dedicated to these higher values of life, doesn't want to waste a moment outside of self-realization for myself and in my relationships. So it doesn't necessarily clearly answer the question, what's beneficial, what's not for every specific. But for me, it's like a North Star. It's a reference point. To what extent in my interaction, whether it's someone at the post office or here in this Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, to what extent is my very way of being, including my words, supporting and inspiring the spirit of inquiry into who am I not, self-realization, that distinctive opportunity in the human form of life that really is not available in other species. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Thank you for class. And so in that verse, what stands out for me is the uncivilized man. So my curiosity is peaked there is because so the arrow pierced, not just by any man, but by the uncivilized man. So that's what my wondering is like, what does that mean? Like, what is, so for me not to be that person, what does that mean to be civilized versus uncivilized? I have a few thoughts, but I'm curious to hear from you. Yeah.
Well, I guess there's a distinction made between like Arya and Anarya. It's more like Arya means like spiritually cultured, knowing the goal of life instead of just rampant sense gratification. That's the distinction: eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Ahara, Vaya, Nidra, Maitana, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and then Dharma. That's what distinguishes the human being from all the 8,400,000 species of life. It's Dharma, following Dharma.
So you're saying that when a person is connected with their true essence, their spiritual self, and they're acting according to their spiritual self, then that is the definition of civilization,
Yeah.
of being civilized. When they're doing all the human body-mind stuff unconsciously, then that's the uncivilized. That's the distinction you're offering.
Better said it better myself.
Thank you. Yeah, because the thought that comes to my mind is from my experience of when somebody says to me something unconsciously, and they might not mean it or
Yeah.
whatever it is, and it's like comes out of the blue,
Yeah.
then those are the ones that pierce
Conversation,
because I'm not even prepared. Like where it's a conversation
right?
and there's empathy and there's feedback and we've agreed to listen, then that's different. I can hear hard truths and not feel the piercing. But when it comes
From just ignorance.
from ignorance or from out of the blue, just
Yeah.
lack of consciousness, then those are the ones that pierce. So that was my thought of the which fits in with your distinction of when somebody is more conscious, therefore connected with themselves, then their words are less likely to be piercing. Thank you.
So, yeah, thanks for sharing this. So the experience you share seems to me it's consistent with what the verse is saying. Yeah.
One something to share, like in Bhagavad Gita, the Krishna says, like, if something hurts you, means that you are still holding ego very dearly. Is that true?
Hare Krishna, thank you. Dad, where is that in Bhagavad Gita?
I heard from somewhere, like if you have ego, that means it's like something hurting means if you still hold your ego, that's what is happening. Right?
Yeah, I would say that what Pradeep is saying, it's there right in the verse you referenced, Vishnu. Yeah, that 2 point and other places. So yeah, what you say, Pradeep, is consistent with my understanding of a theme of Bhagavad Gita. That whatever, our hurt, our resentment, our bitterness, yes, are becoming rageful, anger, our hostility, it's because I have ego attachment. So another verse, and again, I think 256 does that. It represents your dad's point very well. Krishna is talking about the material downward spiral driven by the material attachment, false ego. And he goes, while contemplating the objects of the senses, one develops attachment for them. From attachment, one becomes lusty. Lust is frustrated, then we become angry. So we can think in terms of like the external body frustration, but here we're talking about the subtle body, right? I want respect. I'm contemplating this person or this group will respect me, they'll honor me. Yes, yes. But I'm not getting respect, I'm getting insulted, I'm getting words of piercing arrows. And then I get angry, and that's all because of my false ego. It's because of my, Prabhupada used the term so many times, conditioning. Conditioning means I'm accepting something as truth that's not truth. So I'm accepting that this body and mind is actually me. So when someone honors it, I'm good, I feel good. And when someone insults it, I'll hurt them back. And so, yeah. So that's a core principle of Bhagavad Gita that you expressed, Pradeep, and that's why it points to, that. So of course, actually, this process of mantra, Idi Shadashakam Nam Nam Kalikamasanasanam, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So for detaching from that fierce attachment to our false ego, this process of mantra is especially recommended in this age. I actually did my doctoral dissertation on the effects of chanting the Maha Mantra on relieving stress, relieving depression, increasing life satisfaction. And the results of our studies confirm the assertions of Bhagavad Gita, Satatam Kityantu Mam Yatantas Chantu Davrata, Namasyantas Tumam Nichantush Nityutu Pasate, that this kirtan, Satatam Kityantu, this kirtan is a very powerful method, whether chanting through kirtan or for japa, it's a very powerful method for supporting us to realize who we are, different from the hardware or the software. And it's not just like some abstract philosophical thing, but that realization supports me to be peaceful when people aren't saying what I want them to say, when life isn't going according to script, supports me to be jolly, joyful, peaceful, because actually I quoted the other day, there's the Greek philosopher Epictetus, he described the essence of real philosophy. So Epictetus, the Greek philosopher, said, the essence of true philosophy is to live life in such a way where our happiness depends as little as possible on external pleasures. So an external pleasure can be the gross material senses, but it's if, people are honoring me, and it's pain when they're insulting me. So that's real philosophy is not just meant to be an abstract mental exercise or intellectual stimulation. It's meant to actually bring us to the truth of who we are as that atomic unit of sentience that is inhabiting this body and that inhabited other bodies previously will continue after the death of this body. So thank you for that, Pradeep. It's a vital point there in Bhagavad Gita. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I have a comment I can share about the speaking truth in a beneficial way. And my experience of that, what comes up for me is this concept, open-hearted versus closed-hearted.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty simple thing, but it's very profound. And it's like there's really not much to describe like what open-hearted is, kind of just like a feeling, like it whenever you feel it. Like if someone says something in an open-hearted way, or someone says it in a closed-hearted way. And for myself, I know that I was speaking truth, years ago, and still now, which is a main experience is like speaking truth, the form of like giving feedback, especially in a seminar, software seminar space. And I was getting feedback about my feedback. And that's basically what it was, is that I wasn't coming open-hearted, it was kind of closed-hearted. And I was and so it was like you could say the same thing.
Yeah.
Open-hearted versus closed-hearted, and then I think there's a distinction there, like the experience that people will get, because and I'm doing this kind of personal growth work with my wife, where masculine feminine relationship kind of stuff, and it's so much. That's kind of a big thing, is like staying open, just staying open-hearted, and it's like no matter what, it's like could be saying, could be all the same things, nasty, anger, rage, but if it's open-hearted, then it's like different experience. So that's kind of on my mind lately, and so there's that kind of personal growth way of like open-heartedness. Actually, that's like part of an affirmation that I wanted to affirm after the third time I took the advanced course. Open-hearted was like a part of my agreement with myself to affirm that quality within myself. So yeah, so my question comes up about like, what does that mean in like bhakti yoga? I guess that's what bhakti yoga is we're trying to soften our heart.
Soften the heart,
And
yeah.
open the heart. And so it's like this whole process. And then, yeah, and then experience devotees or people practicing, they're like not open hearted, closed hearted, and like, yeah, not open hearted. So that's like what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be cultivating open heartedness and softening of the heart. And yeah, so I guess my question is more about that distinction between open-heartedness and closed-heartedness. Like I said, in my experience, it's just like a feeling, and you just kind of know it when you feel it, you know it when you see it. But I wonder more about like philosophically, shastrically, the qualities of open-heartedness.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, Patrick. What was the question?
Like, what are the, like shastrically speaking or philosophically speaking, like what are the qualities of open-heartedness? What is that mean? What is open-heartedness?
I guess maybe feeling compassion for all living entities. Brahmane Gavi Hastani, looking upon an elephant or a brahmana, a dog or a dog eater, there's the same super soul in every heart.
Yeah, I like that connection. Earlier in the class, I think you referred to this Sadhava Sadhubhushana verse. So that verse starts with Titikshava Karunika. It talks about open-heartedness, and it's combined with the qualities of devotee spoken by Lord Kapila Dev to his mother Devahuti: tolerance, compassion. Yeah, good job, nice. Suridam Sarvadehinam, truly friendly to all living entities, whether they regard me as a friend or enemy, or whatever species body they're in, or whatever nationality body they're in, and regarding no one as my enemy, Ajata Shatrava Santa. These are the qualities of the open-hearted sadhu. And I'm glad you mentioned that. And I remember that was your agreement with yourself back then in 2015. And it really points to like the essence of the process of bhakti. Bhakti is about, there's actually quite esoteric, intense studies of this in the Nectar of Devotion. And it talks about, I could not do justice to it, but it talks about like the devotional heart becomes like shellac, and then it becomes like velvet, then it becomes soft like honey, and then like melted butter. And it really talks about the qualities of the devotional heart. And this is a sign, because we could be practicing this then, but this is a sign of, are we progressing or not? Because maybe I increased my austerities, I get up at 2 a.m. now, which could be great. But is the result of my attempts at austerities, I'm becoming more and more harder-hearted. Means I'm really alienating myself from the actual essence of bhakti, which is the soft-hearted, compassionate, tolerant devotee who's a true friend to all living entities, however they might regard him. So it's a real gauge for our advancement or lack of it. It's a fact. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Malini?
You were not finished with your sentence?
I am finished.
I'm thinking about Atmananda Prabhu's question earlier.
Yeah.
Now Vishnu bringing the Sadhubhushanam verse. And, like Atmananda, how do we know that's beneficial? And we spoke so much about, different mode of material nature, different motivation. And right now you said also like to be kind and beneficial to others, whether or not they see me as a friend or as an enemy.
Yeah.
or if whether or not they are my enemies. So meaning like, if it's beneficial, it's really the only person sharing is the one who determine if it's beneficial, but not necessarily that the beneficial effect is going to be experience proven, whatever, by necessarily the effect. Like you said, like, you know, you can preach to the lion and they are going to stay lions, even if you give them something very palatable. So I was just bringing the two together because, like,
And-
beneficial, if, you know, for so many things, if we expect that our way of being is going to be mirrored or confirmed by people in our life, we may miss opportunity for growth by that expectation or by that desire.
Thanks for that. Yeah, hearing you speak, Melanie, it's like, because beneficial doesn't necessarily mean it will be comfortable or pleasing. In fact, oftentimes, you know, like we might express something or act in a way that, well, for yeah, to the extent that we're like aligned with, you know, higher, pure sources of wisdom, then we have intuition about when I'm acting in a beneficial way or when I've got some other agenda going on. And so we might speak in a way that's truly intended to be beneficial from a clean heart, but it's not necessarily comfortable for the other person to hear. We're communicating in a way that hopefully is not arrogant or obnoxious. So yeah, I mean, so like the other person might stay aligned, but that's ultimately it's between me and, let's call it, the highest guidance within, about how sincerely intentional was I to co-create a beneficial effect. And related to what you're saying, Mike, oftentimes the unfolding of the truly beneficial effect in terms of self-realization, sometimes that might unfold tomorrow or next year or next lifetime. Yeah. And the general recommendation is to be kind of like rigorous with ourselves and gentle with others. Now, sometimes it's our particular service to point out some apparent shortcoming with others, like if it's our service. But like, it's generally recommended, Trinata Pisnichana Troy Vasishtuna, you know, with others, humility, empathy, compassion, tolerance, acceptance, and with ourselves, also empathic with ourselves, and also not complacent with ourselves, not complacent, to have some healthy pushing ourselves to refine the quality of our character. Yeah. So yeah, so generally the devotee is not eager to find faults in others. A truly devotional heart is not a fault-finding heart. At the same time, a conscious devotee does not deny their perceptions. Right? There's a distinction there, right? Like, no, I notice my perceptions, and here's a quality, and I notice some deception in me, and whatever. We don't deny our perceptions. At the same time, we're not seeking out faults in others just because I don't want to look at myself. Well, the devotional mentality will tend to more seek out the wonderful qualities in others. And but we're not denying our perceptions. And then sometimes it might be our service to share those perceptions, including what we sense might be blocking a person from their most sublime process of self-realization. And often though, we might notice things and we determine it's not my service right now necessarily to point it out. It's not my service to shoot a piercing arrow. Sometimes it might be. Hare Krishna.
Any other questions, comments? Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
jai.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Thank you everyone for joining us.
Jai, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Vishnu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Hari Bol.